Hello? There we go. Heard myself that time. Yeah. Make sure my phone is silent.
Whoa,
There we
Hopkinson's
go.
over?
All right. Well, it is that time once again. I'd like to welcome everybody to the February 16th, 2021. It's kind of hard to believe we're in February, middle of February. Council work session. It's more like a mid-monthly meeting because we do have a couple of items of action today. Don't see any public comments. Do we have anybody signed up? Okay, well, I won't even go through my spiel then. But welcome. It's nice to see some familiar faces in this nice, cold, balmy day out there. Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Owens.
Aye.
Mr. Anderson.
Right.
Ms. Pillion.
Present.
Ms. Quetch.
Here.
And Mayor Webb.
Here. All right. For the approval of the agenda, we had some minor discussion earlier. I think we've got a couple of items we want to flip-flop in order, just because of the way they flow. So I would entertain a motion at this time to flip-flop those items if.
I'll make.
Okay.
All right. Motion by Mr. Anderson to, I think what we're doing is we're flip-flopping the ordinance and the resolution. So we'll do item I, the ordinance, before the resolution. And do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, second by Vice Mayor Quetch. Any discussion, council? All right, hearing none. Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Owens.
Aye.
Mr. Anderson.
Aye.
Ms. Pillion.
Aye.
Ms. Quetch.
Aye.
And Mayor Webb.
Aye. There were no public comments, Kim, is that right?
Correct.
No petitions or public hearings today or proclamations. No brand new business, but we do have some business. And that brings us to the flip-flop part. We're gonna touch I, the ordinance first. We do have a first reading. We're all familiar with this. It's an ordinance vacating a portion of the unopened 40-foot right-of-way known as White Avenue, located at or near 226 Barter Drive, 238 Barter Drive, and 236 Barter Drive in the town of Abingdon, Virginia, bounded by property currently owned by petitioners Michael E. and K.C. Richards Beal, tax parcel number 013-3-28, Robert D. and Estella M. Gilmer, tax parcel number 013-3116, and Lauren Street Wagner, tax parcel number 013-3-36. And I assume it's the John Dew Show.
Looks like it today. I hope that's okay for everybody. You couldn't change that. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of council. This is the next step in the vacation process for the petition we received several weeks ago to vacate a portion of that White Avenue right-of-way. As you remember, we already went through the process of appointing a board of viewers. That panel took a look at it on behalf of the town and made a recommendation to you at the last meeting that they had no objection to the vacation with a few stipulations, which we have cleared up on the final plat. So this is the next step, is to have the first reading of the ordinance. I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any at this time.
Council, what questions might we have?
I have no questions.
Okay. I know we've touched on this 3 or 4 times at this point in time. I'm okay with everything as it is. We are, I think, entertaining dispelling of the second reading and just moving forward and passing it as is today. If that's, do you see any problems with that, Mr. Dew?
I personally don't see any objection to that. There hasn't been any objections either from the public or anyone about the vacation. And like I said, we have straightened out the issues that the Board of Viewers recommended. So
Okay.
I personally don't have any objection to it.
Okay, all right. Council, any other questions or comments or? Okay.
I'd like to go ahead and make a motion, if
Sure.
we can, to go ahead and pass this ordinance to vacate the portion of right-of-way on White Street, or White Avenue, excuse me.
And did you want to dispel with that second reading?
Yes, and dispel with the second report reading.
Okay.
And I'll second that.
All right, motion by Mr. Owens to approve this ordinance and dispel the second reading as stated in the packet, and a second by Vice Mayor Quetch. Any discussion, council? Cam, we don't need to read that in detail, do we? I mean, I think everybody had time to peruse through the packet, so pretty well self-explanatory, kind of lengthy, so. Okay. So, hearing no discussion, Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Owens,
Aye.
Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Ms. Pillion,
Aye.
Ms. Quetch,
Aye.
and Mayor Webb.
Aye. Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Quick,
And
quick,
don't leave.
quick question, John, on
Yes,
this.
sir.
Do you or does somebody from the town, let these individuals know that
I
it's
do.
been? Okay,
I will follow up with them and let them know, yes.
thank you.
Good
Excellent.
question.
Excellent. So stay in the hot seat, because that
I
brings
will.
us to resolutions.
I'm here, ready,
Uh,
bring it.
First, we have a resolution supporting the town's grant application for study of Town Creek watershed. And I assume, John, that we are gonna have a few questions about that, just,
Yeah.
you know, kind of where it came from and what it stands
Sure.
for and all that, so.
Sure, this is primarily a part of our overall effort to try to eventually improve things there at the Main Street crossing of Town Creek, you know, concerning the flooding issue. In our work with the consultant AMT on this, they presented to us a grant opportunity for money to do study of this sort of issue. Now, I'll go into as much detail as you want, but I'll just start out just briefly, just saying that this grant would give us the opportunity to leverage some money, in this case $50,000 of grant money, to further study Town Creek beyond, a little bit beyond, or certainly beyond, where it just crosses Main Street, just immediately upstream or downstream of that. And where I think that would help us, I think it would be a great advantage if we could do that, is we have issues in other places on Town Creek. And I think this would be a great start to set us up for maybe future projects, future improvement projects. So what the resolution does and what I'm here to ask you to do is to consider and request that you, by resolution, commit $50,000 as the local match to this grant opportunity. And like I said, that will just enable us to study a little bit further on Town Creek other than right at Main Street. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
What kind of time frame are we looking at as far as
The study, the application is due here very soon. We'll probably find out the results of the grant probably in 2 or 3 months. And we're gonna move forward with the study either way, but if we find out we get the grant money, then we're going to extend the scope of the work accordingly to use up that $50,000 in grant money to further the study. So either way, we'll probably be starting the study in about 2 or 3 months.
So does the study start there on Main Street, or does it start up creek, or?
It starts,
And then works its
if
way
we're
up.
able to get this grant, we're able to study about the entire Town Creek watershed, which covers a huge area. I forget how many acres it is, but it's a substantial area. If you can imagine all the tributaries and everything that feed into Town Creek upstream, and we're able to go downstream as well. So we've got the issue that we're, you know, in the early processes of trying to deal with on the Green Spring Road crossing down there too. I think this study would help us in that effort as well when we get to the point of what we're gonna come back with the replacement of those culverts under Green Spring Road at Town Creek.
Well, you know, I just remember that being an emergency at the time that came to council.
Right.
And it just seems like it's just,
Yeah, it's a long process to try to get funding for it, and that's, I guess, you know, we had an amount of money set aside to study it. That amount of money really wouldn't get us very far at all, and that's when we found out about this grant opportunity, that's when we thought this was a good path to go long-term.
it seemed like we had $100,000 last year in the budget for.
We did include money in the budget.
Yeah.
For
We
the study.
did. So just in case anybody has questions, the council that wasn't seated at the time, so we had, of course, and I'm sure you're all familiar with this, some flooding out on, I guess it's East Main Street up in
Right.
front of the cleaners,
Mhm.
in Josh Combs' place there. It got a trash can stuck underneath the road, and it was backing water up, and, I mean, it was a mess. So we had town come in and fix some of that stuff, and that's why it was an emergency. We had obviously planned on doing some research on that entire situation, but what I'm understanding you to say, though, is that this $100,000 total would probably study the
It's a
entire
study.
town's
Right.
creek.
Right, the Town
Okay.
Creek watershed,
Okay,
yes.
which is ideal, because maybe we can find a way to mitigate some of that all over town, right?
Yeah, and just like many grant opportunities or grant programs, you know, if you're going to get that money, you have to play by their rules, and this grant requires a further study, not just an isolated
Right.
study of one location. It does apply to a larger watershed.
Okay.
So that's the main flooded area right there on Main Street.
Right.
But from what I understand, the grant is gonna study the rest of the part that's leading out, like.
Yeah,
where your
upstream
park
and downstream
down.
of Main Street. The Town Creek, if you know, it runs up past Valley Street, Walden,
Mhm.
up into that area, up into the, I guess, northeast of town. And then downstream, it goes, eventually ties into Wolf Creek down close to the treatment plant. So
Right.
it'll study that entire
Oh, okay.
length.
So hopefully it will alleviate all of that area.
Yeah,
But that's the main,
it's-
that's the main flooded area though.
That's
concentration.
the main focus is Main Street, yes,
Okay.
because that's where we're clearly most impacted, and where it has the most impact on residents, business, you know, commerce, transportation.
Sure.
So
There was
that's
always
where
the
we're
fear
focused.
at the time, and one of the reasons that we kind of looked at it as an emergency was there was always the fear that if there was flooding blocking off Main Street there, and then something happened and there was an emergency, that, you know, your access to get around that part, you had to kind of do a whole block, and it just wasn't ideal. So we were worried about, you know, fire services, EMS, et cetera, the police being able to get through there. Because there were a couple times we had to shut it completely off.
Well,
Yeah, we've
emergency-
had to shut it.
The
Well, you
emergency
know-
I'm speaking of is the Green Springs Road culvert.
Oh, okay.
Because you have to cut,
Okay,
you
yeah,
have
yeah.
to shut down the road
Right,
and,
sure,
you know,
sure.
we're talking about the sports complex, we're talking about, you know,
Lots of traffic.
yeah, lots of traffic.
That's true.
Yeah.
Green Springs culvert.
And, you know, switch gears a little bit to address that, you know, we do have a plan if something went south or bad on that right now. We do have a plan where we could just simply replace the pipes as is in there, and that wouldn't require any, you know, right of way or, any additional engineering or anything like that. We simply have to replace the pipes. Now, it would involve having to close the road for a portion of time, but that would be pretty quick. Now, there are some other options we're looking at. You know, ideally, personally, I'd like to be able to take that curve out of that road if we were ever in there anyway, doing that sort of work. But that would obviously require right-of-way and engineering and higher cost. So,
But now that study, it hasn't started yet? The one on the $100,000 that we budgeted last year for?
well,
the
that's
Green
what,
Springs?
that's part of what this
Okay.
is all about. Yeah, we've
I know
already
you
engaged
tied
the
it
consultant.
together.
Yeah, we already
Mhm.
got the consultant under contract and task
Okay.
order to do the study. They found out about this grant opportunity, and they presented it to us, and that's why we're here discussing this now, is to try to leverage that additional $50,000 of grant money. And we have to commit $50,000 to it. So we were already going to spend $50,000 plus
Yeah.
on the study. This enables us to leverage an additional $50,000 to extend the scope of the study, which I think, I absolutely think it'll pay dividends in the long run.
So you're
So
saying
we're
it's
trying
not,
to solve a 60-year plus problem.
Or more. I'm not
I know
sure.
it's more,
I
no,
assume
Right
it's,
there.
I
Yeah.
assume it's flooded Main Street ever since Main Street went
ever
through
since I
there,
was a
but,
tot.
but it's
You know.
certainly the last two springs have been terrible as far as
Just a matter of
stormwater
time.
and flooding issues. So, and, you know, I hate to even say it, it's already, it's setting itself up already this year to look
yeah.
similar. The ground's saturated, but, yeah, we're trying to address that problem.
so we're not looking at budgeting more money, we already have this money budgeted. We're
Yeah,
just
we already have
committing
the
to
50,000.
spend it
This-
on this.
Yes, that's a
Yes.
great point, because the grant requires us to demonstrate by council resolution that we have the money to commit to it. So yes,
Okay.
that's exactly right, that's a good point.
Well, that all makes perfect sense. Thank you, John. I appreciate
Okay.
that. So essentially, by us passing this resolution, it is part of the puzzle for us to get the grant.
It's
money.
part of the grant application to
Sure.
demonstrate that we've committed the funds to do the
Excellent.
study.
Well, having said all that, I would entertain a motion to adopt that resolution to get that money.
I'll move to adopt that resolution.
All right, motion by Ms. Hillian to adopt the resolution to apply for the grant money. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Anderson. Any discussion, council? Hearing none, Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Owens?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Ms. Pillion?
Aye.
Ms. Quetch?
Aye.
Mayor Witt?
Aye. All right, and we do have another resolution. It's the resolution accepting certain White Avenue right-of-way. Mr. Duke?
Back at it. This pertains to, or is associated with the right-of-way vacation that we just had the ordinance passed on. With the vacation, they split the part that they vacated up among the three property owners, petitioners. It left a small portion of right-of-way just adjacent to or attached to the Barter Drive right-of-way. If everybody's familiar with the plat or had a chance to take a look at the plat. This simply absorbs or transfers what remains of White Avenue into Barter Drive right-of-way. And I think Cam was, I think, pretty insistent on this to clear this up and to avoid any confusion that these properties are fronting on Barter Drive and they are already addressed on Barter Drive. So it really just kind of cleans up that vacation process. And Cam might have comments.
I think everybody easily adopted it because it was such a great idea, is what you mean. There's this little weird remnant left, and I just didn't want us to push down the road 50 years from now and somebody say, where's this weird triangle of White Avenue that hasn't been accepted or rejected, and so just put it in part of Barter Drive. We've vacated the rest of it, and so it sort of clears up that 100-year-old issue.
I hope that's what everybody heard when I said that. Yeah, it was just a great.
That's what I thought.
Yep, it is. All right. Council, do we have any other questions about that resolution? Still pretty good? Okay. If so, I would open the floor up for a motion to adopt that resolution.
I'll make some motion.
All right, motion by Mr. Anderson to adopt the resolution accepting certain White Avenue right-of-way. Do I have a second?
I'll
Second.
Who got there first?
He did.
Second by Mr. Owens. Any discussion, council? All right, hearing none. Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Owens?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Ms. Pillion?
Aye.
Ms. Quetch?
Aye.
And Mayor Witt?
Aye. Clearly, that was a good idea, all of that, so.
Thank you.
All right, moving right along, we don't have any unfinished business that I know of. That brings us to miscellaneous business and communications from town manager. Jimmy, did you have anything specific to say, or you want me to?
I'll start with something brief that doesn't require any action, because we'll probably forget after we get through these items. Just wanted to remind everybody, we are gonna be doing some new headshots for, we have new council members from last July, and,
Sure.
some of us, I think we're just doing the council members for this meeting, but we might be doing a few of the department heads, but I'll handle those. But just wanted everybody to remind everybody to, look their best, take a shower, fix your hair,
I'll try to remember that.
When is this?
Next, March 16th, the next work session. Yeah, we got
At noon.
plenty of time. We could even,
At noon.
we could all go on diets if we want
At
to.
noon?
All right.
At noon?
It's gonna be at noon, okay, so it's gonna
It'll be
be,
in the Arthur Campbell room. We're gonna do it in the field.
and there'll be a buffet afterwards, I think.
Yeah.
So it's at noon on March 16th, and it will be the same day as the mid-month council meeting, so we'll have to find a way to kill some time in between there, and
Sure.
like we said, buffet sounds like a good idea.
All right.
Now, don't make promises.
All right.
How far I'd like to start, we can go right into John's presentation on
And
the
continue the
transportation.
John Dew show.
Still here. Tired of me yet?
No.
Okay. This next item, Jimmy asked me to come up and present to all of you just somewhat of a brief update on transportation in town. And when I started thinking about it, it really kind of funneled down to probably the best way to present it to you. It's through some slides. I will not read the slides word by word, but they're just to help the discussion. And I'm open to questions at any point throughout this, so please just let me know. But, sometimes I think a lot of people aren't aware of just how many projects we have ongoing. And just wanted to provide some background as far as funding and what programs and how these things came to be. So just briefly, John, if you go next slide. Yeah, just a quick introduction that I'll start out with the smart scale projects that we have going on in town, which You know, I can think of a lot of adjectives, but blessed or lucky or fortunate, however you want to say it, we are all of those with the number of projects that we have currently underway, either in design or in construction, through this program. And that's VDOT's main program for trying to deliver and decide on funding for different transportation projects for localities. And I can tell you from my experience, both my time at VDOT and then my discussions with the folks there, that I know that the town of Abingdon and Washington County are very fortunate and have received funding for quite a few projects where a lot of other localities are shut out or just have a few. So we're very lucky there. Next slide, please, John. Here's a list of the current Smart Scale projects. And again, Smart Scale is just one of the funding programs that VDOT has. And the town has utilized quite a few programs in the past, but this is the largest program for us to get funding for projects. This is a list of the projects we currently have that were applied for and awarded through Smart Scale program. And I will just run through the list real quickly. The intersection of West Main Street and Porterfield Highway, or Route 19 as it's also known, West Main Street and Jonesboro Road intersection, Hillman Highway and Old 11 intersection, Russell Road and Poplar Street intersection construction, and one we just recently applied for in this latest round and just heard we were recommended for funding just in the last few weeks is Thompson Drive and the Stanley Street intersection.
Now, I have one question about that project.
Uh-oh.
Is there a roundabout?
There is a roundabout.
I knew it. I knew you'd slide
Is that
one in
good?
on us.
Is
I
that-
think it looks great, by the way. I just,
But didn't we pitch that, didn't we say when we brought it to council for that resolution that it was gonna, we have not decided yet?
We talked about, yeah.
We talked about that.
It among other things, it helps with the scoring in the Smart Scale process. They do actually score favorably for what's called innovative intersections or innovative traffic control. So a roundabout is one of the high scoring.
Far enough away from the intersection that we're not gonna have any issues.
yeah, I actually really like, I mean, I really, in all seriousness, I really did like it. I know Wayne's probably, grumbling right now to himself, but seriously, it looks good, and it would really help with that intersection. You know where I'm talking about? Did you
Oh,
see it?
yes.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, it looks
You've been there.
fantastic. It really does.
Well, I love a good roundabout, but that whole area, and luckily I don't drive children to school right now because I have teenage drivers, but that whole area is treacherous. You have to
Yeah.
plan very carefully how you're gonna get in and out of there.
Keep traffic moving.
And just like any new configuration, it'll take time, and some folks is going to be slow to learn. But from a traffic engineering standpoint, strictly objectively, the roundabout is a wonderful intersection treatment in a lot of cases, and I wish, personally wish we had more in the town. But this is this is a start, or a second one. It'll be the second one actually we have now, since we have one at the sports complex. But there's a list of, now those projects are all currently either in design or as I mentioned about Thompson and Stanley, were just awarded. So I've got on the chart there when they are expected to begin. So West Main Street, Porterfield Highway is the one that currently will be starting here fairly soon. So that's the next one we'll see. In progress, and again, didn't know if anyone was aware of that, but the Exit 17 and Exit 19 interchange projects are both Smart Scale projects that were applied for. The town actually applied for Exit 17 in the first round of Smart Scale, which is now about, I think, 6 years ago. Just now getting ready to get under construction there. You've seen all the demolition that was done prior to the advertisement for bids, but they are getting ready to start construction here very soon. Exit 19, as you know, is already underway. That was actually a project that was applied for by Washington County and awarded, since it is, the majority of it is in the county, but still Smart Scale program. Very interesting to me. If you look over to the right, the total estimated cost of all these projects together is $48 million. And again, there's some localities that have had $0 of Smart Scale projects awarded. So feel very fortunate. It is addressing some really important needs, especially the interchanges on the interstate. Those two are really gonna show some benefit, I think. So $50 million is a lot of funding. Even though it's only like 1/10 of like Patrick Mahomes' contract recently, but still, to put it in perspective, but still, it's good for us.
After the Super Bowl would be next.
This is the Super Bowl for transportation right here, so that's what, okay, so
Well, if you want a few more Super Bowls, John, maybe we can get some more.
I'm working toward that. Yeah, I'm getting a little long in the tooth, but if Tom Brady can do it, maybe I
Oh,
can.
yeah.
The next few slides, next slide, please, John, is each one of these projects with just a planned view of the way it exists now and the proposed reconfiguration or alignment. Again, I am open for questions, and I can get as detailed as you want, but I thought I'd just go through these briefly and just tell you basically what we're trying to achieve with each project. So the first one is the West Main Street and Porterfield Highway, or Route 19 intersection. On the left, you see the existing configuration now. On the right, you see, if you can see, it's a little small, but basically we are adding an additional lane for southbound Route 19, and that additional lane is going to be going to end up with a dual right turn at the intersection. So you're southbound right now, Route 19, and you want to turn right onto Main Street. You're going to be able to get in 2 lanes, whereas right now it's just 1 lane with a yield merge at the intersection. So those 2 lanes will be controlled by the traffic signal, which is different than what it is currently. But if you can look at it this way, it's kind of a mirror reflection of what we've got with the dual left turn lane coming off of Main Street, turning left onto Route 19 to go northbound. So the way this thing developed was that is the primary movement in that intersection is southbound Route 19 to Main and eastbound Main to northbound Route 19. So it's kind of reconfiguring the intersection to give more focus on those movements as opposed to traditionally Main Street by itself was the primary movement. So any questions there? Or? Okay. Next slide, please, John. West Main Street and Jonesboro Road intersection improvements. This is very similar to the one just described in that this is reconfiguring the intersection to put more focus of where most of the movement is, which in this case, it's northbound Jonesboro turning right onto Main, or westbound Main Street turning south onto Jonesboro Road. So in this case, again, it may be a little difficult to see at that scale, but right now that right turn is just yield controlled. They are actually going to bring that in a little bit closer and have it controlled by the traffic signal as well for safety reasons, but give more time to that movement. So hopefully that'll improve the level of service in that intersection. And if you can see toward the right of the slide there up on Main Street, there's currently an opening in that concrete median. And again, for safety reasons, and this was backed up by a comprehensive study done several years ago for West Main Street corridor, that we're going to close off that median opening there for to prevent that hazard of right angle collisions there. So,
And many might realize that that's actually in a turn lane, so
yeah.
that median is open in the middle of a left turn lane, and it's not ideal.
It's definitely undesirable from a traffic standpoint. It's one of those things that never should have been done in the first place, but it was, and just kind of held on throughout the years, sort of legacy reasons. But this is an opportunity to make the smart choice here. Any questions on that one?
There's gonna be some cars clear up there, going over the curb. When that first happens.
That's my lawnmower gas station there too. I use that opening pretty frequently on weekends in the summer, but, next slide, please, John. Hillman Highway and Old 11 intersection. For those of you familiar with that intersection, you look at the picture of what it is now, and that's just chaotic, a chaotic configuration there to me, because you have 2 different ways to approach Old 11 or come into Old 11. If you can tell from it's the planning or the engineering drawing right now on the right-hand side, it's going to force all the vehicles turning onto Old 11 to do as you normally would in a T intersection. It's just gonna make it more consistent, more simple than what's out there now. It's another improvement, though, we were able to get through the Smart Scale program.
I have almost been hit there.
It's chaotic. I mean, it's confusing, and I think a lot of people, especially people that haven't been through the intersection, a lot of them don't know how to deal with it when they get in there.
Well, I almost got hit and then I got cussed out severely, and it wasn't even my fault.
Well, we could have put that on the application.
You should ask me.
I think Mr.
Score higher
I think it's
is applications with
The
elected
council
officials.
member has
Yeah.
been cussed out, yeah.
And I had children in the car. I was pretty upset about it.
That's even
higher.
more points, yeah. that's-
I was mad. I yelled at the guy. I said, I don't know why you think you can talk to me like that.
Are there any animals involved?
No, there were no animals involved this time.
In this intersection, okay. Next slide, please, John. Thank you. Next one is Russell Road and Poplar Street. If you're familiar with that one, that's where, I've referred to it before as kind of the half moon old Russell Road. Circles around there and makes for two very difficult intersections to Russell Road where it's very difficult to be, have to look back over your shoulder to see if anything's coming. Again, very undesirable from a traffic standpoint. This project is going to take Poplar Street and bring it straight in, as you see on the drawing on the right, straight into Russell Road and make it, again, a simple T intersection, a very conventional T intersection, and going to eliminate that entire leg and all that pavement to the left or to the west side of Poplar Street now.
Oh,
And
so that weird little, that part's gonna go away.
that part's gonna go, with the gray
Okay.
shaded area to the left is gonna go away.
Okay.
Now, on the right-hand side, we have to keep a section of that pavement in there to give access to those apartments.
Right,
But we
right.
are gonna close off the intersection right there where Academy Drive, it's a
Right.
terrible intersection where
It is, yeah.
Old Russell, Academy, and Russell come all together in one, terrible intersection. So we're gonna eliminate that one, leave a turnaround down there for trash trucks. But just, again, make it a safer, much more simpler intersection. Any questions on that one? Next slide, please, John. He's already there, thanks. Now, here's the popular one here. Thompson Drive and Stanley Street intersection improvements. I think I know everyone's familiar with this intersection, and certainly anybody that's driven to and from any of the schools or the Coombs Center as well through that area knows that that one can be pretty chaotic during the peak times. So what this project does is it puts in an innovative intersection in the VDOT terms of a roundabout, which certainly provides for a more continuous flow than a stop-controlled intersection. So if you noticed on the chart earlier, it came with a pretty large price, and that's primarily for the real estate or right-of-way that's going to be involved in purchasing to be able to fit that roundabout in there, and probably going to involve retaining wall down in that area. So that's what drove the cost up. But again, we were successful in getting recommended for award for that.
I got a quick question on
Yeah.
the orange or yellow or tan line. Is that a sidewalk, a new sidewalk?
Yes, it is.
Good.
I'm glad I could recognize that. I'm
Run down
colorblind.
I was gonna say.
Will that give us sidewalk all the way up? Cause I know it does that.
It gives sidewalk,
Okay.
I don't think we don't reach all the way down to Main Street, if that was part of the question, but
It's
it
on the
does.
other side.
Yeah, but we've got it up beyond the administration building.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then all the way to the Coombs Center
That's great,
into
yeah.
EB.
Good, good.
You can cross over and be all the
Yeah,
way down
that's
to
what
Main
I'm
Street.
saying.
Yeah.
That was one of my, pet peeves, is trying to get sidewalk all over town.
Which, and again, to add to that, and a little bit more about the Smart Scale program, but that scores as well too. That
Okay.
scores well also is when you have pedestrian and bike accommodations. And we try to do that where we can, where it's reasonable. Great, thanks for the question. Next slide, please, John. Exit 19, under construction now. If you look it to the right, one of the biggest features about this and one of the biggest improvements in my mind is you see to the left part of the project diagram there that it's extending Empire Drive over to connect to Main Street with a signalized intersection, which I know the people that live in Southview have been frustrated for a long time about trying to get out, certainly making a left turn out on the Main Street. So this is going to bring them to a signalized intersection, which is helpful. The other significant change here is that if you want to get on the interstate going southbound toward Bristol, you're going to, the only entrance for that is going to be a turn right there at the loop. It's going to be very similar to what was done at exit 14 and similar to what we're doing at exit 17. So that loop, you see it in red there in the lower left portion, the loop that you currently use to get on southbound from, say, well, now it's Domino's, the Wendy's, and all that area. That loop is going away. That entrance ramp is going away. So everything will be going to the on-ramp through the loop on the north side of the interstate, if that makes sense.
All right, run that by me one more time. So that red part is being taken out?
Yeah, the red part, the
Okay,
red
okay,
entrance
okay.
ramp is being taken
And
out,
it's gonna
yes.
be integrated into the actual circle itself?
So instead of doing that right turn move
Uh-huh.
to get on southbound, you'll go straight and make a left turn.
Let's see.
All
To
right,
enter
that
on.
makes-
Is
that
that-
makes it- But there'll be a traffic signal there?
Yes.
Okay, all right, that makes sense.
Yeah, because right now you can get eastbound and westbound, you can go to Bristol.
Yeah, and I
so
see
there-
people shoot across through there out of that
Right.
neighborhood. Yeah, oh yeah, it's dangerous.
It is
That makes
dangerous.
sense, okay, gotcha.
Okay.
Nice.
Next slide, please, John. Everybody, the town has waited a long, long time for this one. You know, this project has been on and off the 6-year plan for, I think, literally 20, 25 years. So, and it didn't come without some bumps along the way. Even after it was awarded smart scale funding several years ago, there were some concerns because the budget ballooned a little bit because of some unexpected right-of-way costs, but it's here now. It's going to start construction literally in the next few weeks, and it's not that perfect solution. You know, the VDOT had a plan back in the late 90s to redo this entire interchange, but it was going to involve taking most or all the businesses between the interstate and Cook Street in doing so. So that project also, the last estimate was about $170 million, and so it was never going to happen. So this is a concept that was developed to eliminate what is primarily the problem, which is too narrow or too few lanes under the bridge for Cumming Street. So as you drive through there now, if you're going to get on to interstate either southbound or northbound, you've got conflicting left turn movements under that bridge, and there's very limited room, which always ends up in backing up traffic. Well, this configuration here is going to eliminate those conflicting left turns by making the access to northbound, you're going to go under the bridge and go right-hand on the loop. If you see the new loop there on the right-hand side, if you're coming from town on Cumming Street, you go under the bridges. Instead of making a left turn to get on northbound 81, you're going to make a right turn. It's a free flow right turn, which always functions better from a traffic standpoint than trying to make a left turn across oncoming traffic. So it eliminates that left turn conflict under the bridge, which we think is going to really make a big difference in the level of service.
So I also see a road coming back behind those apartments down off to, is that intersection?
Gravel Lake Road.
Is that Bogey? Is that right?
I think
Is that where
I
it's
think
going
that's
into?
Bogey.
Shooting
Yeah.
into? Okay.
It's coming across, it's where Gravel Lake Road is now. Gravel Lake is the one that goes up to the quarry and to
quarry?
the, to
Okay,
the
so it's
asphalt.
okay, it's all the way down then on Fairway.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what, that was,
Is that right, Tyler? Okay.
we needed to do that because in constructing the loop ramp that you see, we had to take out Commerce Drive, and that's why the Hampton Inn was demolished as well. That area
Sure.
was required to do that loop. Commerce Drive has always been difficult to get back onto Cumming Street, so it eliminates that issue and provides access for those businesses and apartments back there by coming around to Cumming Street. And you'll notice too, on the right side of Cumming Street there, we're reconfiguring where Country Club Drive comes in to Cumming Street. That's always been another problem. People coming in and out of Country Club Drive This brings it up to a signalized intersection, gets it away from the interchange a little bit, which improves the level of
Sure.
service as well,
Yeah,
so.
when I come in out of there in the mornings to take Eleanor to school and swing a left, it's dangerous.
Yeah.
It really is. You can't
Yeah.
see. You know,
It's very difficult, and and so much traffic, you know, especially
Sure,
during the peak
sure.
times.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think this is it'll be a significant improvement. It won't eliminate all of the issues, not all the congestion, but a big part of it. I think people are gonna be really pleased when this thing gets up and running.
How long did they project that will take to finish?
It's gonna take at least a couple of years,
Okay,
yeah.
sure.
Finish that. I can't remember, I believe I had that in the chart, maybe. No, I just had the start date,
Yeah,
that's right.
I saw the
Yeah.
start date. I was just curious about but that's awesome.
Yeah, 2023, I think, is the projected finish.
Okay.
So, any other questions there, or we good? Next slide, please, John.
I got some questions here.
Okay, all right. So, those were all smart scale projects. Like I said before, and I've been up here several times before talking about other VDOT funding programs, which is primarily where we get our transportation money. Here are some projects that are currently underway within the town. Either our projects, the one at the end there is a VDOT initiated project, but or will include benefits for the town. So these are, I've got the different funding programs listed with each project. Again, to the right, I've got the total estimated cost of the projects, almost $6 million. So again, we've got a lot of funding, a lot of opportunities, and we've been given a lot of,
Well, I'm just looking at the time frame, okay?
okay?
And the first one, I thought it was gonna be this spring, and we moved it out to
I
December.
thought so too.
Can you explain why it's gonna take a year?
It's, I can explain. I don't know if it's a good explanation or worthy or it's certainly not a satisfying explanation, even, certainly not to me either. It's taken literally a year to get to the point of getting right-of-way plans to VDOT for their approval. And, a lot of factors involved there, but primarily it's utility relocation. Because we have to get the right-of-way plans set with all the utilities, where they're gonna be, and have easements defined for each one of those before we can even get to that point. So there's been a long, very frustrating, disappointing process in trying to get that all squared away to the point where we can.
Well, it's
get
been
the funds
90% complete for a long
back.
time.
I agree with you. Well, when I first started back here, I thought and I came up here and said that. That's
Yeah.
where we were, is we're ready to submit right-of-way plans. That was, I was wrong on that, and apologize for that, but we have spent.
Is there such a thing as just getting a temporary easement, going in and doing the work?
No.
Is it,
No.
let me ask you
No.
this, because
No,
my
and that's-
engineering brain is very limited. So, is it because of the number of properties that we're traversing? Is that?
That adds to it, certainly, because, because of what we're doing, we're installing curb, gutter, and sidewalk in an area, a phrase I like to use is we're shoehorning improvements into areas that don't have a lot of right-of-way. So
Gotcha.
we've got to get right-of-way to put those improvements, curb, gutter, and sidewalk. But then when you move the curb, gutter, and sidewalk back, then you're forced to, a lot of times, move utilities also with it. Primarily the poles and electrical and communication lines, that sort of thing. But there's also occasionally storm drainage, water, and sewer. But
John, was it primarily AEP or was it the telecommunications utilities?
well,
Was
you're
it
working
both?
with all of them.
Right.
Because they're all, most of them typically are hanging on the same poles. So you're working with all of
So
them.
it wasn't just AEP, it was.
Yeah, I
it
wouldn't-
was-
yeah, I
It was
wouldn't describe it as
Comcast
that.
or
And-
Point or.
And I'm hesitant to, point any fingers. I mean, I'll take the bulk of the blame.
But you don't
at this.
think we can move that date up?
I can
I
try.
mean, December, even it being December, are they gonna get it done in December,
No, that'll be a start. That's a start
I
date.
mean, a start.
Yeah,
What
that's
do
a
you mean
start.
Well,
Because
those
what we've got,
utilities-
let
are
me
those
tell you what,
utility poles, are they gonna be underground?
I'm sorry, what?
Are the utility,
Oh,
Wires
the
and stuff
relocated
underground?
utilities, no, they're still gonna be overhead.
gonna be overhead?
We are gonna have some underground, crossings, like service, that we worked out, but the bulk of the utilities are still gonna be, the electrical and the communication are still gonna be overhead. Where was I headed? I was going, I had a
Sorry,
point there.
you were answering.
You're moving the date up.
Yeah, moving the
Oh,
date up, yeah.
well, here's, And I'll tell you why I intentionally put it that far out.
Okay.
Primarily because I don't want to give false assessment like it did a year ago, and that's very unfortunate. What we've got ahead of us between now and start date is when we get clearance to start right-of-way negotiations, then we've got to go out to every one of, Holly, do you remember offhand how many property owners we're dealing with?
I think it's 48.
That's what I
48
thought.
property owners that we've got to get easement documents from, and that potentially, or in some cases, may involve purchase or donated rights of way. So that's a long process, no matter who you do. I mean, I'll just use an example. VDOT typically says it's a minimum year and a half for right of way, no matter what their project is. You know, bigger projects are going to extend even further than that. I'm hoping that we can get ours done by the end of this year. If we can do it sooner, that'd be great. My experience on other projects we've done in town were, in several of those cases, I was the one knocking on the door and talking in people's living rooms about the easements. It's a lengthy process, because obviously people got a lot of things going on in their lives. This is not their priority.
Sure.
Some of them, it will be a high priority because their property benefits from it. So I just don't want to give any false hope.
Well, the next one I brought to council, it was the sidewalk there, that's got moved out 5 years to 2025. And I know you've made some changes, but, you know, I just had somebody that asked me 2 years ago when I brought this, I was saying, oh, we're gonna get a sidewalk, and I thought we were. But now, I know things have been changed. It's not just gonna be a sidewalk,
You're talking about the Hutton.
Hutton, yeah.
That's
But-
not what this one is, but
No, I'm talking about, the one down here is not the Hutton one?
no.
Oh, okay.
No, this is another one. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
see,
we've got a drawing plan for the Hutton sidewalk. Right now, we don't have the money in this current year budget on sidewalk improvement to do it. We exhausted those funds last fall for the continuation or part of the urban path that we had
Okay.
to do. So, no, this one is another section, and I'll tell you
Okay,
about that one. But-
okay.
so-
The only major
But
thing we were
let's talk
changing there
about
was.
the Hutton.
Okay.
bit,
Yeah.
Because I just had somebody ask me.
That's fine, yeah.
That, and I would just hate to have to go back and say, no, it's in the 5-year plan.
No,
you
no,
know?
now that's not even a VDOT funded
Okay.
project, so we're not tied to their
Okay.
conditions or rules for.
We've got all the survey work done on that one, and.
Survey's done,
Just-
we've got the design done, we just need to, probably gonna wait until the first of next fiscal year to do it.
How much do you think that was gonna cost, if you don't mind me asking?
It's probably gonna, configuration we've got now is probably gonna, I'm guessing 75 to 100,000.
And let me explain the reason why it wasn't
Yeah.
just putting the sidewalk back. When we discussed it further, we determined it would be in the best interest for safety reasons to relocate that utility pole. Is that correct,
We're
John?
gonna
We're gonna relocate it because it's a really tight turn there on Hutton Street.
Sure.
And so we'll try to relocate it within the right of way still.
And
Right.
it's not just, in this
To make it
case,
done
it's
right.
not just a matter of pouring a sidewalk adjacent to the curb out there, which we discovered in the survey. We've got a property owner there that's not cooperative with us, and so we are going to pull the sidewalk in closer toward the center line. And at the same time, move that pole on the corner of Main and Hutton that right now is at the edge of the intersection, makes that right turn especially incredibly tight and difficult, slows down traffic. We're gonna try to move that pole back and open that up, open that radius of that intersection
Well,
a
when we
little bit.
discussed it prior, we discussed it being a safety issue, that runners,
Mhm.
were having to leave that part and go out into the road.
Oh, I've
You
run that
know,
many,
there's a
many
safety
times. It
issue.
is, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, my thoughts are, well, can you do something temporary, like asphalt, until you're able to,
I'm not
I
sure
mean-
we could do anything significant and stay on town right away is the concern, yeah.
The sidewalk's not gonna be where that little path is,
No.
basically.
It's gonna,
Gotcha.
sidewalk's
Shut it down
probably
more.
gonna be about where the
Yeah.
curb and gutter and a little bit further in
Sure.
than what it is now.
Yeah, you could just pitch some gravel and see whose property it lands on.
It-
so can you, and you say the timeline on that's probably the end of the fiscal year?
we can, what we hope to do is put it out for bid before the end of this fiscal year, so we can get a contractor started right at the beginning of next fiscal year, and then the invoices then the invoices will come in.
Hopefully you'll be able to be completed in the summer.
Yeah,
I mean, I think we're just talking about, I know it entails a lot more than what I'm
Right.
thinking, but, you know, it's 150 feet probably, you know?
I
I think
know.
that would
Well,
be great though, cause if,
you
you
know-
know, my kids run cross-country, they run through there every day.
I mean, this is, please don't take this as some kind of attempt at excuse. I'd like to see it too, and
Yeah.
you know, these things seem to always take longer than they should, I know, but it's, in this case, certainly, it's not just as simple as just pouring concrete out there where it is now. So that's what we're hoping to accomplish without creating any problems out there.
John, me being the rookie on this, I can't visualize how you're talking about if you're coming from the east to the west on that existing sidewalk and then the sidewalk ends. And you said that the new sidewalk will come out into the road a little bit?
Actually, if it, you know, you may have not even noticed, it's pretty subtle, but right now, if you're coming from the east and heading into town, the sidewalk, as it is currently, takes a taper, makes a turn away from the center line, if you will, gets wider in that section before it ends at that property right there and becomes the dirt path. What we are planning on doing is just extending that existing sidewalk straight through to Hutton Street. So, no, you'll be, on the sidewalk, you'll just continue to go straight. Right now, it makes a taper or a slight turn to the right.
You know, when you're running through there and you kinda have to jump off the curb and get on that little skinny dirt path.
I just run in the road, I
I
don't
don't-
Well, there's a lot of times
Okay,
there's,
heavy
I
big.
have
At the
tripped
wall-
and fallen
a
on
lot
that
of
little
times
dirt
there's
path
3
before.
feet.
John,
At the,
weeds.
at that
That
retaining
and you're
wall,
having to jump a
it's
curb
pushed
to get
out
into the
here,
little dirt path.
and her little path is like over here.
Main Street.
Yeah, it kinda goes
If you're
like
coming,
that.
if you're coming this way and the wall's on your right,
Mhm.
And you gotta
and the
jump the
sidewalk is
curb
like
and get
here,
on a little
but her little
dirt
path
Yeah.
is like over here.
Isn't
So
there a
the
cement
sidewalk
column
would
of
sit
some
there.
sort, like a
The
marker
sidewalk would
around
be
there
like
too?
you're
somewhere?
like
That's what I
you're just
thought.
running.
Right-of-way
on the road.
monuments,
Yeah.
there's,
Sidewalk
there's
would
two
be-
of them out there, old highway right.
Okay.
John's gonna try to pull,
And there's a,
if you want to continue looking at this, he's gonna try to pull up the GIS and I can show you what we're talking about.
you can see, and you probably almost tripped on it, there's a VDOT
Yeah, that's
tripped
what-
on
that's what I just
concrete
said, yeah.
pillar there.
I've fallen
And
there.
so,
gotta
yeah, like,
pay
like
attention.
John said, it's,
Sure.
our right of way is kinda over this way from where
From that little.
the path
So-
is.
Yeah, if you'll notice, the Main Street lane there is pretty wide, and that's what, we're gonna take advantage of that and move in the curb and gutter a little bit.
So when
towards
you're coming
center
down
line.
Main Street, you won't see that the curb and gutter does.
No, if you're going down Main, it's gonna be a straight shot until you get to the intersection of Hutton. Now, with the reconfiguration you're doing there, when you get to the intersection, you're gonna be crossing at a slight angle to the right to get to the existing sidewalk there, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Tyler Mitchell in there. Tyler, you're my hero.
Good thing we didn't have Mason doing it. He forgot his password the other day.
That other one on the list, East Main Street, that's a connector between the Dollar General, where we got sidewalk in front of
okay.
Dollar General,
Yeah.
to the sidewalk at the Lutheran church there.
Oh, okay.
It's a section, I think it's, what is it, 300 feet long, maybe?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
a
it
dangerous
needs one
section.
too. It needs one too.
Dangerous,
Yeah.
cause you got on the other side of there like a bank, embankment of some sort.
And people walk there a lot.
Yeah, I
It'd be
never,
Nice to have that whole area just all sidewalk.
yeah, see, we never
Or
went in that
Tyler.
direction in high school because
Tyler.
the sidewalk was, you know.
Maybe Google Maps? Yeah, maybe that's a better way to do it. But that, and the reason for the extended length on that is, again, that's when the VDOT funds will be available. But I will say, a lot of times, happens quite frequently, VDOT will contact the locality and say that the funding's available to speed up a project. So if we get that opportunity here, that could bump up that time frame on that section.
Is that because maybe other projects
Weren't as much as
completed
they
or-
expected, or, yeah, exactly.
Oh, imagine that, you can't see it cause all the trees.
Yeah, he's gonna go down to, I think he's gonna go down to street level there.
I'm joking, I'm joking.
Cause it's, the aerial, it looks very subtle to where that curb and gutter, see, there's the bend, right there where his cursor is. It's pretty subtle, but it bends, if you're coming from east to west, it bends to the right. There you go. And so we're going to just extend that sidewalk straight to Hutton Street. It'll narrow the lane slightly, but we still got plenty of width in the lane,
Okay.
adequate width for traffic. But it's just gonna make it straight through, and then that pulls the section, the new sidewalk where the dirt path is now, pulls it away from that property line, so we've got room to
Okay.
work and maintain the sidewalk.
Good, good. That'll be a nice adjustment. Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you, John.
Yeah.
Okay,
thanks for all
you're
that
welcome.
detail,
I'm
no
glad.
joke, yeah.
Maybe I need to do more updates more often.
Well, one thing that I would like to also ask you is, when are we gonna start back infrastructure committee meetings?
Soon.
Soon?
Yeah, that's another thing on my backlog list right now, definitely.
Well,
Yeah.
now that you got this meeting over with, and
Yeah.
all of
Shoot.
you should be good for a
Got
couple weeks, right?
juggling a lot right at the moment. Others on that list, though, John, if you could go to the last slide, thank you. We talked about Park Street, the first one. Second was the Russell Road signalized crosswalk. We just completed that one just late last fall. The East Main Street sidewalk, this one I was talking about between Dollar General and the Lutheran Church. The last one is an interesting one that VDOT is doing, and it involves, I mean, I'm sure all of you have heard in the news about the initiative to try to improve safety and response time on Interstate 81 up the entire corridor. Well, part of VDOT's effort includes upgrading an alternate route. When you've got an incident on Interstate 81, as we've seen it again and again, it just gridlocks the town. So they're going through the entire corridor in the Bristol district and focusing on Abingdon and Marion, and they're going to help us, or they're going to do some traffic signal upgrades in those areas that make it possible that when we do have an incident, they're gonna actually have the ability to monitor it from the district office and make changes in the signal control as needed to try to get traffic through more quickly. Again, it's like the Exit 17 project, this isn't gonna eliminate congestion when you have an incident. That's just too many vehicles coming through an area at one time, but it will certainly improve the experience.
John, correct me if I'm wrong, aren't they using some of that new revenue from the toll? Did you
From
say
that I-81,
Did you
yeah,
say
that
that? I'm
I-81
sorry.
funding issue, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they are.
I just wanted to stress that, that's why I wanted to repeat it. Not that I-
Yeah, that's, and I show it in the charts there on both the Smart Scale and these, the town involvement. Smart Scale, the town, at least on these projects, we have $0 into them. They're all state funds. These projects here, we have a 2% match on Park Street. The other projects are also zero town dollars on those.
Fantastic.
So that's it in a nutshell. If there are any other transportation questions while I'm up here, I'd be glad to try to respond to them or have some answers.
Thank you, John.
Thanks so
You're
much.
very wel-
Thank
Thank you for
you.
the time.
Very good, very good.
Yep.
info.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Tyler.
All right. Well, that moves us on to number 2, discussion regarding the fiscal year 21-22 budget process. Steve, come on up.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and council members. I believe Kim passed out just prior to this afternoon's meeting a draft of the budget calendar for the 2021-2022 budget for the town. Just wanted to give you an update. We have been hosting internal departmental meetings to review their budgets. The final one is scheduled for next week, which happens to be John's department. And as you've seen from this previous presentation, he's got an awful lot on his plate, both funded from VDOT as well as internal funding. So we saved his for the last. internally. Once that's completed, then we already have scheduled with the Finance Committee a number of departmental presentations starting on March 3rd and then going to the next week of March 11th to finalize those departmental presentations to the Finance Committee. Once that is completed, then we'll move into the mid-March work session where we'll be able to discuss the revenue and capital outlay portion of the budget. And then moving into April, we'll look at the expenditures based on all those departmental presentations. And then that'll culminate with our first reading public hearing in May. And then the second reading and at the June 7th council meeting with hopefully the adoption at that point. So right now we're on track to maintain this calendar. If there's any changes, we'll certainly communicate that with the council. Any questions on where we are at this point?
Questions?
Okay, if you have any questions in the meantime, please don't hesitate to reach out, and look forward to seeing y'all at the, particularly the Finance Committee, looking forward to those departmental presentations.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Steve.
Thank you.
Very nice. I don't remember in the past having this detailed of a breakdown. I really appreciate that. That certainly will help guide us, no doubt. Excellent. All right. Something we've all been waiting for, sewer rate analysis. Jimmy.
Yes, by the way, that was a good presentation, John. Well, good work with everything you had going on. That's,
Absolutely.
you know, that was a good presentation. Sewer rate analysis, some of you who are on the council last year might remember Davenport did a presentation, and it included, basically it was a sewer fund pro forma, and it included the projects and some of the short-term operating costs, and took that into consideration and provided an analysis of our sewer fund. Well, that was presented about a few weeks before the pandemic really started, and we made the determination. We limited some of our capital improvements. We did move forward with some of the wastewater projects, albeit I think a little bit more methodically. But I think what Steve and I would like to do is do a little bit more of an in-depth sewer rate analysis going forward, and I think this will help us guide some of our decision-making going forward. And I think when the new council members were on board, I think I did provide a copy of that sewer rate analysis. It's basically, now it's already outdated, I think, because of the fact that we did kind of change some of the, we're kind of changing our direction on what we want to do. We are still addressing the I&I issues. John and his staff are still trying to do that, but this is going to provide a little bit more in-depth study and analysis, and potentially bring us out a little bit further. So at this point, Davenport is going to be sending me a proposal to handle this, and we would be going out for an RFP. There are firms that specialize in this, engineering firms that look specifically at rate analyses and those types of studies. So I really wanted to update you as to what we're looking at doing, and there's no action required at this meeting right now, but I just wanted to make sure everybody was comfortable with doing that, and if anybody had any questions or concerns about that. No. Okay.
Well, certainly, the sewer budget is a pretty hefty.
Yeah, and we've got a lot of
budget.
capital projects on the
Sure.
horizon, and I think it gives, particularly for the new council members, it also gives some good information to chew on. So, anyways, might have something for the first meeting in March, at least to discuss or potentially consider. But I'll be talking to Steve and John and Cam about it before we bring anything back to council. So
Sure.
I just wanted to throw that out there. So.
The capital projects you're talking about, are they upgrades or?
There's a few that are upgrades, but primarily the major issue we're trying to address are some I&I issues in the system. And John, I think this is your opportunity now to come back up here and explain to some of the new council members who did not go through here. Come on, John. Yes, just explain some of explain some
Yeah.
of the I issues so they can understand. We've got 3 new council members, and I
Okay.
think it would be good for them to hear the
Man,
the
I didn't
background.
do a PowerPoint for this one.
No PowerPoint for this one.
Okay, all right, just to explain to anybody that's not aware, maybe not everybody's aware what I stands for. It's inflow and infiltration. It's what every sewer system probably in the world has. It's just leaks in your system to where water gets in there, groundwater, creek water, other sources, sump pumps from people's basements, things that aren't supposed to get in there. And what it results in is ultimately we're treating clean water at the treatment plant, which is wasteful or unnecessary. So every community that has a sewer system has to address I&I issues. In a relative sense, I think we're in pretty good condition, but we have done a study that identified areas where we do have I&I issues. And we've got some projects. We have 2 projects currently underway where I just received plans and specs, and we're going to put these out to bid soon. One is for a section of Town Creek Sewer, which runs along East Valley Street, around Walden Road, and out in that direction. Going to do a replacement there. That's a section that we've long known had I&I issues. There's even one section in that run that is reverse grade. That's supposed to flow by gravity, but the pipe's tilted in the wrong direction, to explain it easily, and that's just not good for flow, obviously. So we're going to address that section. We're also doing a project that's not I&I related, but certainly system performance related, and that's replacing the force main on East Main Street from where they are currently working on exit 19 interchange up to the top of the hill, just past Bella's Pizza, where it empties into gravity sewer. That section of the line, force main, has ruptured, I think, 4 times in the last 7 or 8 years. So we're replacing that line and hopefully eliminate that issue, which is troublesome in a lot of ways. And primarily, the existing line runs in East Main Street, so whenever there's a rupture, we've got to open it up, do the repairs. It disrupts Main Street and disrupts the businesses in that area. So we're going to get it almost entirely out of the road, so that we'll get new pipe and out of the roadway. So hopefully that's a big improvement there. We're currently with funding that you all helped us get through a grant application. We're currently expanding our sanitary sewer evaluation study to further identify other areas where we have I&I issues. And this study sets us up to get low or no interest rate loans to do I&I work or improvement work in the future. So there's going to be several projects coming, in the next few years or in the near future. Is that?
Yeah, I think the other thing I was going to say, one thing that John had mentioned to me is if we're going to look at this more long term, we need to also consider potential future plant upgrades as well. And that might not be quite 10 years down the road, but it could be close. And a lot of that might depend on regulatory requirements that are imposed on the town. So those are kind of things we're going to be thinking about when we look at these.
We're pretty good from a capacity standpoint on our
capacity-wise,
treatment
yeah.
plant, but sometimes upgrades are required either because old equipment gets old or new technology that makes you want to do a plant upgrade, but otherwise, or like Jimmy said, regulatory requirements sometimes require you to do some upgrades on your treatment plant equipment. So we always have to keep that in mind eventually, but we're not in an issue capacity-wise at this time.
Thank you again, John.
Yeah,
Okay,
thanks,
you're
man.
welcome.
All right. And that brings us to discussion regarding parking in fire lanes.
Yes, this is something that I just wanted to discuss today. Since I came on board, I've had discussions with Chief Holbrook and Chief McCormick, and just the purpose of this meeting is just let everyone be aware of a potential issue that we have, and I wanted Chief McCormick and Chief Holbrook just to come and present a few facts and maybe share some of their concerns, and then I'll close it up at the end of the discussion. So Chief McCormick, if you want to come up and address the council.
Mr. Mayor, member of council. Three basic reasons for having a fire lane. First is the obvious. Our equipment's so big, we have to have a place where we can put it and do our job when we get there. Second reason stems a lot from the building code. Building code tells you how big you can build a building based on open perimeter. And if you've got that frontage open in front of the building, it'll allow you to build the building even to amounts of unlimited area as long as you've got the space. So fire lane deals with that also. And the other thing also from the building code, not only for our trucks and our equipment that we use, pulling hose, everything like that, it stems from people exiting the building to where they don't have to come out of the building and run into automobiles or people standing or stopped in the fire lane waiting to pick someone up. So that's the three main reasons that we do have the fire lanes. Right now, we do have the fire prevention code, and it allows 4 fire lanes in the fire prevention code. And it will allow the fire code official to not write a ticket, because we don't write tickets, but we can issue a violation notice to the person parked there, which could be set on a monetary penalty type basis. But with just being one person that enforces the fire code, it's kind of hard to add that to my responsibilities. So the state of Virginia says if you adopt an ordinance for a fire lane, then it becomes state law under the town's ordinance, and then the police can enforce it and write tickets. Plus, when they write a ticket, it goes to the courts, and then people don't only pay a fine for the ticket, they end up paying court costs and everything else. So it kind of ups the ante and says, okay, it's going to cost me $400 to park in a fire lane instead of say $25. So that kind of keeps people from doing that. But we do have problems in the shopping centers we have, mostly the bigger shopping centers, strip malls, things like that, to where we're having the problems with the people parking in the fire lanes.
Y'all get quite a few phone calls pertaining to such, or?
We don't get as many. I think
It's more
Chief
police,
Holbrook
I got you.
gets more, because people look at, they look at the police, why don't you all enforce this?
Sure.
And they don't realize that there has to be a separate ordinance for them to enforce it.
Right. Yeah, it sounds like a
What do you have-
disaster. I'm sorry, go ahead.
What do you have to go through to get the monetary fine increased? That'll stop it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
We don't have an ordinance on the books right now to enforce that, so.
Gotcha.
You would actually
right,
have to,
yeah.
you'd actually have to have an ordinance for the police to enforce it. I can go out right now and give them a notice of violation, and you all set the fee to what it would be.
Gotcha.
But like I say, I don't have the time to
Right.
do that, as we've got more policemen than we have fire chiefs, so.
Well, have you guys ever arrived to a scene and been, prevented from getting as close as you could from the
There
car?
have been instances, yes.
Gotcha.
And we've seen horror pictures of other departments go out and outriggers come out to set up ladder trucks and things and end up damaging cars. Something's kind of neat that really wouldn't want to do, but would kind of like to do. Sometimes if somebody's parked in front of a fire hydrant, you break the glass out and run the hose through the car and hook up to the fire hydrant. But never had the reason to do that yet, but I'm waiting.
You think we ought to create an ordinance?
I think we ought to, yes. But it's not as, you can have an ordinance out there, but it's gotta be enforced.
Sure.
And, there's more that goes with just enforcing it. The property owners have to be the ones that maintain the fire lanes. And they have to have certain markings that has to be maintained, signage and everything, just like you would with a handicapped parking space.
This is just not a current problem. It's been for a long, long time. I've lived here 30 years, and
Yes.
and I always just assumed that, like the shopping centers and the commercial properties, that they were the ones that were supposed to police that, since it was on private property. So you've kind of clarified that for me, why there's not been any policing of that. So I think it'd be a great idea if we establish an ordinance and start enforcing this, because it drives me crazy, to see that, and it's very able-bodied people that are parking in those, that are, ruining it for everybody.
Absolutely,
I think
that's what it
And
is.
put on their flashers, like that's gonna
Right,
give them an
right.
excuse.
I think the biggest concern is the people that are exiting their vehicles and going into the stores as opposed to those who are idling. I think, you're kind of in that gray area,
Right.
when you're idling, cause if, I guess we talked about earlier, if a fire truck were to pull up, I think someone's gonna realize, oh, I better get out of here. But the ones that actually exit their vehicles and they go into the store and, but I would like to let Chief Holbrook
Sure,
just,
sure.
he wanted to share some thoughts on this as well, cause.
Thank you, John, appreciate that.
Well, you know, as me and Mr. Morani had talked, I think the topic of the conversation came up with a call and complaint to the police department of, why aren't you all enforcing this?
Sure.
There's no parking signs, there's lines on the parking lot. They see us just walking right past because right now we can't really do anything. So I expressed my concern to Mr. Morani, who started taking note. If you all would just start taking note at the number of people, and I'm sure you all already have.
Oh,
And it's kind of tough for us to just, you know, see a violation occurring, but no, there's no ordinance for us to take care of it. And it becomes a safety hazard for the fire department as well. I've looked up some ordinances and they run very, you know, the gamut throughout Virginia, everything from no parking in a fire lane to no parking in a fire lane that's clearly marked with signs and paint. So that's gonna be kinda dependent on the fire code where Chief McCormick would have more information, but it's frustrating for our folks. And then throughout my career at Abingdon, we've had complaints just kinda trickle in, why aren't you all enforcing the no parking on fire lanes? And we say we can't, there's no ordinance, for that. Now, you know, it would be up to you all on what you want the ordinance to say. And it can, of course, be no parking, or it can be no parking or no leaving a car unoccupied. Cam would probably give us more details on that, on what kind of leeway you would have with that. But as far as enforcement, we are set up for that, for parking enforcement. We have the parking tickets already, we have the system already in place. We have the system for people to pay their fines, for people to go to court to contest their fines, and we're ready to go. So it would just be basically adding that to our daily functions.
How do you, this is just me being green on the PD side, but
Sure.
if we did something like this, would you guys go through a grace period where you tried to warn people, hey, we are
Yes.
now enforcing these tickets, you know, would you tell the business owners? I mean, I'm just curious, like, how.
It would
I
be a lot
wouldn't.
of education. It would be a
I
lot of
would.
education.
They already know.
I agree with you, I'm just thinking.
That's the first thing you learn in driver's ed.
Well, we,
Don't park and no parking?
Yeah.
That's right. No parking is no
It would
parking.
be a lot of education, it
Sure.
would be a lot of enforcement. It would be even our officers saying, hey, that's a parking violation, can you please move your car?
Right.
Now they feel uncomfortable even saying that because there's no ordinance that says that. It's,
Gotcha.
you know, there's a sign there and, you know, it'd be nice not to park in a fire lane, but there's no enforcement backing with that. So, yeah, it would be education, it would be us even giving warnings and saying, please don't park there.
Well,
And,
have you had any complaints from the business owners? about-
not that I know of, no.
Just wondering how they feel about it.
no, the business owners, this is what gets into the whole, you know, being, it's a delicate subject because the business owners want the business and they want people to run in the store, get what they need and get out. But there's a reason why, you know, we have a code and there's a reason why there's a fire code. They'd probably not like to have as many entrances or they might not want certain doors to, you know, be ADA accessible, whatever, because it costs money and it's an inconvenience maybe for customers, but that's why we have the code. If we did something like this, we would probably start first with the business owners and talk to them about it, because I do believe some of them are probably not even in compliant with the fire code because of the identification and the markings. So part of the problem might be, it's just not properly identified, and we need to work with the business owners on that. We would start there, if it was up to me, we would start there, then go forward through an education campaign with the public and patrons. And then before it got to that, then, you know, hopefully we don't have to issue any, it's all about enforcement. That's all this is about, and about compliance. It's all about compliance, really.
Well, I think it's a
Which is
great
more
idea.
important? Which is more important, money or safety?
Safety.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's not about in any way that, but we need to make sure that we are advising the businesses and explaining to them why it is we're doing this. So we would probably meet with them, the fire chief, police chief and I, and the large shopping centers would affect, and sit down with them and talk to them before we even started this process.
So-
But the purpose here was just to talk about it, let everybody be aware of it. I think after Chief Holbrook put a bug in my ear, I started noticing it more, and I was just amazed as to how frequent it is. And I was just shocked. And now, every time I go to the shopping center, that's the first thing I look for. Shame on you, because I can't get peace when I go to the shopping center.
Have you ever confronted somebody about that?
I have. I actually told somebody, I said, you can't park in the fire lane there. He goes, yeah, well, I'm just dropping this off. And I said,
Been nice
okay,
to-
all right. I mean, I didn't say who I was or
Well,
anything.
I think
he just
this
didn't
is
care.
a great idea that we do adopt a ordinance. So what do you need from us to expedite this? I don't think we need to kick this can down the road any
Well,
further. I mean,
we have some sample ordinances that we'd like to review with Cam, and I know he's already actually worked on one, and actually Chief Holbrook and McCormick have provided some information to me. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to review it, and if we could bring it back for the next work session, and I could present some ideas. I just don't want everybody to think that this is something that, I understand that this could be a delicate issue with some of the business owners, and some of the shopping centers don't want us to, but I mean, we can't have it both ways. We either gotta enforce it or we can't, or we don't. And so we're just trying to be consistent is the key word, and to enforce really what should be enforced, since it's already in the fire code. We just don't have the mechanisms to do that. With the ultimate goal is compliance. That is the ultimate goal.
Well, I guess you guys just need our grace then.
Yeah, just wanted to make sure that there was at least a comfort level before we spent more time, because I just wanted to make sure that everybody was comfortable with that,
So that's just a verbal acknowledgement, or do we need?
Yeah,
to make a
no,
motion?
you don't need anything, just providing me the knowledge to know that there's a consensus to continue this discussion at the next meeting in March, and
Yeah.
I didn't want to do anything formal. Sometimes it's good when I bring these issues, I've learned in the past, working with councils, when you get an issue like this, it's good to present it, let them think about it, and then you'll go out and you maybe kind of, just think about it. It's good to sometimes let these issues sink before you just kind of jump into things.
I just thought John.
I
wanted to do
know,
his
Mike
job.
wants to jump into it, but not everybody is like Mike or Scabo, and they want to do it. And some people, work at their own paces, and I don't want to make it look like I'm trying to force anything. I want everybody to kind of just think about the issue and kind of observe, and then, we'll be ready to discuss it at the next committee meeting, and I think everybody will be prepared.
A lot of times,
My
people take
biggest
your kindness
concern-
for weakness,
What's that?
A lot of times, people take your kindness for weakness.
True,
Yeah.
true.
But my concern, I just think sometimes the business owners, some of them might be thinking, I don't want the police officers here giving tickets to my customers. They're gonna run
Yeah.
my customers off,
Well, we do that with handicap parking.
Yeah.
So that's the only, and I actually did not realize that I thought that the property owners were the ones only responsible for enforcing it. I didn't know that the fire chief or yeah, like I said, it's a delicate situation. We are sensitive to that. I've talked to them about it. This is not something where we're trying to educate first. That is not the goal, is to come out and be the parking lane police or fire lane police. That is not what we want to be, but I think there's a lack of just knowledge and awareness of the issue.
I agree.
And that is the fundamental, and I think as we talk to the shopping center owners and the business owners, if we get proper signage, I think through that education, we can gain compliance, and that will be but once,
That'll be the
but
key.
like Chief Holbrook said, without having that ordinance, it really provides us no avenue to come in and say, hey, you need to do this. So that's what we're trying to accomplish.
Shine a light on it.
Yeah.
I never knew that you didn't have a.
So we know 2 council members are ready.
No, I mean,
But I would like to continue this discussion. We'll bring back some information that we can,
Absolutely.
we can
And
consider,
Thank you guys for
so-
coming and giving us some
Yeah.
information. Yeah.
appreciate it.
Thank you. So you're saying we're in the research phase?
We are in the compilation of proposals that we actually have some drafts, but I thought that was too premature. I wanted to get some feedback from y'all first before we started presenting any formal policies, so.
Good deal.
Excellent. Moving right along, council member reports. Do any council members have reports they'd like to make today, or? No?
I do, sort of.
Sure.
I spoke with Mr. Moranti about this. I've spoken with a couple of you all about this. I don't think I've spoken with Mr. Owens about it Dr. Owens about it, just because I haven't seen you. And I've kind of run into everybody else in the past couple weeks. As a parent of a high school senior, things are very frustrating right now. These kids who are seniors this year did not get a prom or any of the end of the year stuff that they get as juniors last year. They've been jerked around back and forth about sports, which is a county issue and not our issue, this whole school year. Who knows if they'll get prom, graduation, any of those things this coming year, which means that they're basically missing out on all their opportunities to have those things. So I have had several parents come to me and say, can the town help us have a prom if the high school won't let us have one? And I've said, well, I don't know, but I'm willing to bring it up and talk to some people about it. And the town of Tazewell did it in May, and you can Google Tazewell 2020 prom. And they closed down their whole Main Street. And in the pictures, nobody's wearing a mask, but we didn't wear masks in May, really. You know, so I think that if, you know, we could mitigate things differently with the knowledge we have now. But they closed down Main Street. They decorated it. We almost had a puppy visitor. They decorated. All the businesses participated. Some businesses provided one thing. Some businesses provided another thing, you know, food and refreshments, and they just made it special for the kids, and they I guess did juniors and seniors of all of Tazewell County. So I just would like to put that out there, plant the seed, see if that's something the town of Abingdon would be willing to do. I think that we would be able to get a whole lot of help and not have to spend a whole lot of money. And I think that there are parents who have approached me and said, I will give time, I will give money, I will give this in kind donation, that in kind donation, and I think that the businesses in town would also be willing to help. So, I don't know, the school may have a prom, I don't know, but if they don't, I'd like to think about it.
I think that's a very good idea. And one thought I have is something that was discussed years ago, not about the prom in this, but just closing a section of Main Street, the section where the farmer's market is, you know, where you could turn, and this is something John will fuss at me about probably, but if you block that off, you can detour up Russell Road, back to Valley, and then back down to Cummings Street. And then you'd have 2 blocks there of, you know, students could participate in this, you know, this, that's just a thought.
There would be plenty of space. You know, we could have music, we could have a dance floor, we could have a red carpet. Businesses could help us. And I just think that so many of these kids have very gracefully given up a lot of things because of this pandemic. And if it's something that we can do as a goodwill gesture to them, for them, then I would like to start the wheels turning in people's heads. And it could be that by May, the school is ready to have a prom. The way things are handled, the way everybody's interpreting the governor's orders at this point, I don't see that happening. So, and I did speak to a school board member yesterday about a completely different subject, and I mentioned this to the school board member, and she said, I think that's a great idea. I think that's a fabulous idea. I think that that is a very creative way to look at things. So,
I've spoken to the assistant principal at Agnet. He loved it, loved the idea.
good.
So it's,
I think we would have support. I don't think it would be an insurmountable task. I think a lot of people, and I don't know how Chief Holbrook feels about closing down streets.
I think the only thing we're concerned about is closing down Main Street, if we can find another way to do it. No, I told Amanda that if there's a way to do it safely, I don't have any objections using town property, or if there's, you know, parts of a street that we had to close. Do they use park space at all in Tazewell? Or was
I just looked at it
or was
very
it
briefly.
downtown? I mean,
It
'cause
was
we also have a lot of
downtown.
open park space that we could use. I mean, there's all kinds of options that we might have. But
Would Coombs be an option?
I thought about that. I don't know. I
What
mean,
about
I
the
guess it
farmer's
depends.
market pavilion?
We would,
yeah.
Yeah, that's
there's
what
a
I
lot of-
thought. If
There's
we
a lot
could
of
do
real
that.
estate there, and there's a lot of
Well, there's
green
lots-
space there.
There's
so.
adequate parking and pavilions.
And then
Should be
Remsburg,
outside.
and you could have different things
Businesses
set up along the
And
way.
distance,
Yeah.
you know, so
Sure.
that you can clarify a lot
Yeah, yeah, maybe
with it
something.
being outdoors, you know,
Right.
weather permitting.
What is the senior class number? What's the size of the senior?
Probably about 250, 260-ish.
At Abingdon, but you know, if we could do it, I mean, I know that we're Abingdon and it's Abingdon High School, but you know, I don't know if we would want to include the other high schools in the county or not, or if that might be too big.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We'll cross that bridge when we get there. I think the spirit of the idea is great. I mean, you heard my opinion before. I don't think you're gonna have a council member against that type of scenario. We just gotta get creative and
Yeah.
kind of keep us in the loop.
When I have some parents who are excellent party planners, event planners, that are kind of the ones who brought the idea to me, and so the person who I'm thinking of would probably be able to make it happen all by herself, and would just need permission and help. So
Forgive my ignorance, but there was no senior prom last year, right?
No.
Okay, I mean, I didn't think there was any kind of celebration
No.
of any kind.
And it really stunk for last year's seniors, for the kids who graduated in 2020, but the kids who are graduating in 21 didn't have anything their junior year either. And so, for example, now they're being told that there will be no band or cheerleaders at football games, which has been upsetting and is not anything that concerns the town council. But it's just, you can have this, no, we've changed our mind. You can have this, no, this isn't safe. And I certainly understand. I mean, we've lost a dear friend. I understand the significance of this pandemic and the safety issues involved, but I do think that at some point you can come up with a new way to do things that's safe, especially if it's warm and outside.
I see another insurrection coming on.
Well, like I said, I think it's a great idea. So, just keep us in the loop and we'll, trudge along. If we need to form some sort of a subcommittee or whatever the case may be, whatever we can do to accommodate, I think we need to.
I know it's an unusual thing to bring up in council member reports, but it's an unusual time, so.
I think you're right, absolutely. Counselors, or anything else? Anybody else have anything they'd like to throw out there? All right. If not, I think we do have a closed session scheduled for today. Who ended up with the motion?
I did.
All right, Ms. Pillion.
I move that the Abingdon Town Council convene in closed session to discuss the following as permitted by Virginia Code 2.2-3711A3, a matter involving disposition of publicly held real property because discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect our bargaining position.
I'll second that.
All right, got a motion by Mr. Pillion, a second by Vice Mayor Quetch. Any discussion, council? I'm hearing none. Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Owens,
Aye.
Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Ms. Pillion,
Aye.
Ms. Quetch,
Aye.
and Mayor Webb.
Aye. All right. Are we staying in here, Jim?
hours, man.
2 hours.
We've had a lot of intriguing discussions today.
You started off with the 14-minute meetings and now,
All right, we're back in business?
Yes, sir.
All right. So I guess I need a motion to come back into open session first.
I move that the town council certify that in the closed session just
No.
Hold on,
concluded.
man. We have
Not the
to-
certification,
No.
yet,
we have
sorry.
to-
No?
We just need a general motion.
Oh, I'm
to come back
sorry.
and convene in open session if.
correct.
I'll
So
make-
I'm, who do you?
Donna?
I'll make a motion now, to come back into open session.
I've already got a
Sorry.
motion by Vice Mayor Quest to come back into open session. Do I have a second?
I'll
Second by Mr. Owens. Kim, if you please call the roll.
Mr. Owens.
Aye.
Mr. Anderson. Ms. Fillion.
Aye.
Ms. Quetch.
Aye.
And Mayor Witten.
Aye. And now the certification.
I just got excited
No,
to
you're
read my
good,
thing.
good.
I move that the town council certify that in the closed session just concluded, nothing was discussed except the matter or matters specifically identified in the motion to convene in closed session and lawfully permitted to be discussed under the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act cited in that motion.
Mr. Owens, do you
I
so
s-
certify?
I so do certify.
Mr. Anderson.
I so certify.
Ms. Fillion.
I so certify.
Ms. Quetch.
I so certify.
And Mayor Witten.
I so certify. All right. I think with all that being said, there's no action to be taken from the closed session. So that brings us to the end of the meeting, and we are adjourned.
Thank
Do
you.
you need this
Mayor.
back?
Yeah, from Ms. Kim.